know, we're working through kind of the questions that we always get asked at expos or new moms through the website or on Instagram. So we've called it Homeschooling 101, and we've done a whole lot of talks. So we want to speak mostly to the general questions that have been coming up for years, but then also we want to touch on where we sit with homeschooling legally in the country. So today we're chatting about tests and assessments in our Homeschooling 101 series. And we're going to kind of say how we've always done it through the years, how we believe it can continue to be done, and then just touch on the legal stuff. So why don't you jump in and take us through the discussion?
Sure. So the law says that parents must monitor and assess learners that are being home educated. And you know what? Most of us do that anyway, even if there isn't a government request for us to submit a formal report. We do monitor and assess our children on a daily basis, but we all worry, am I doing enough? Because a lot of times we don't even recognize the ways in which we assess our children. So, for example, maths, when you give them a test, you get a score, and that's easy. You know, you've assessed a particular skill or a particular lesson. But for the other subjects, let's talk about how we observe and can acknowledge that our children have learned something that they've been exposed to.
Yeah, we can call it, how does the government term it, a continuous assessment. So we are continually seeing whether it is something our children are asked to do in the home. Can you please unpack the dishwasher, or can you please pack the dishwasher? We can assess whether they know how to do it properly, whether they're now ready to go on and do it on their own. Do they still need our help? Exactly the same way we can do that when it comes to a book that we've read to them, or history or geography content, or a science experiment. Have they been able to do this? Can they tell it back to us? As little children, they are telling us things all the time, what they see, what they're learning, what they're hearing. And sometimes when they get a little older, you've got to pry that stuff from them, but it is a natural thing to tell back what you are learning. I do it all the time to my poor husband. I'm like, wow, you won't believe what I just learned, And it's our natural ability. So we want to really hone in on that with our children. Charlotte Mason calls it narration. Maybe you want to share a little bit about what that looks like in the home as children grow up.
Yeah, well, as you said, with small children, they often just come and spontaneously tell you, oh, mommy, do you know there's ants outside and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
As you said, with older children, sometimes you are more deliberate and you ask them to tell you something that they've learned. But sometimes it just comes up in debates and discussions, at the dinner table, in the car, wherever you are. And sometimes you actually ask them to write an assignment on something that you've learned, because now you are not only testing what they know, but you're asking them to present it and to practice writing skills or presentation skills. So it can become complex. With young children, they sometimes act it out in their games. You've got some lovely anecdotes about how your kids played out things that happened in stories that you read. And then it can also be shown to you in the form of a craft or an activity that they do. So they're not just textbooks and workbooks and tests. There are other ways that we assess learning, all the time in this continuous way. But you also maybe want to keep a more formal record. And it doesn't have to be a schoolish report. We do have a page on our website that's going to guide parents who need that. If they're registered with the department and they have to submit anything formal, we can give you a template for that. But sometimes for your own records, you just want to make a summary at the end of the year for each child and say, in history, we used this program and this is what we did and this is what the highlights were. And for science, we did blah, blah, blah. And you just keep your own assessment and records and a sample of work or photographs, maybe whatever. Sometimes you just have the curriculum on your shelf and it's done. And that's your proof that your children worked through that program. So it doesn't have to be a scary thing. Sometimes we're just doing it anyway, and we don't realize that we do have evidence of learning in our homes.
Absolutely. I was quite thorough in each year putting together a little portfolio and a flip file for the children. I loved it. not only for my own purposes to see that, wow, even in all that chaos, we were able to do this amount of things and complete that maths. And here are the, photographs of some incredible artworks or crafts that we couldn't keep. But the other thing that was wonderful was that we would take those little portfolios and we would sit with my husband, who wasn't so involved in the day-to-day homeschooling. And at the end of the year, each child would sit on his lap when they were little, and they would go through it and point out things and, say to them, look how much you've grown in your character. Look, not just focus on the academic. Sure, look, you kind of got above 90% for all of your maths, or, oh, we can see your science needed a little bit more work or whatever, but look how you've grown. And it was such a source of joy for them as well, because they would measure themselves, which is an important part of growing up and maturing. And I think that we can just bring in a Charlotte Mason angle here, is that she had tests and assessments in her school, but it was not for the children to pass or fail a grade, or for the teacher to pass a child or fail a child. It was so that the child could measure themselves and say, oh, I really need to pay more attention on that attribute or that skill, etc. And that's the valuable thing, I think, about testing. The assessment of the character as well as the assessment of the academic skill. You have a lovely quote. We've got it on our website. We often say it, and I think it is an answer to parents who come and say, but what about tests and assessments, particularly when they're talking about our footprints programs or other eclectic mixes. And we want to say to them, but just enjoy the process. Just go along with this learning skill. But sometimes we need to nudge them a little bit more. And why don't you finish off with that part of encouragement?
Yes, just before I give the quote, I think we look for progress in our children's learning, because every child is unique and they're learning at a different pace. So we don't have to compare them with everybody else who's the same age or level as they are. We look for progress. It's also good to look and see if there's some kind of engagement with what they're learning and some kind of enjoyment or interest. Those things are also important. And to sum up, the quote is from a homeschool mom and author of a science curriculum, Jeannie Fulbright. And she says, if the purpose of learning is to score well on a test, then we've lost sight of the real purpose of learning.
100%. No better way than to finish the chat on that.